G'day, my name's Alan Gamble. Welcome to another episode of Aussie Box Office Charts, Weekend 27. Just a new Jackass movie entering the charts, so let's dive into this week's top 10. Kicking us off, Toy Story 5 holds the number one spot for a third week in a row, bringing in another $6 million. Its third week in release dropping just 2%, thanks to the school holidays kicking off and being in full swing. Its current total is at $27.9 million. And number 2 for a second week in a row is Minions and Monsters, or Minions 3, bringing in $3.9 million in its second week, going up 18% for a current total of $9.8 million. Again, those two movies, school holiday boost is kicking them right up the charts. And normally we'd be talking a lot more about plus 18% being quite significant in a year that Obsession didn't release. Entering the chart at number 3 is Jackass Best and Last with $1.2 million. Which is a franchise low. So it's probably a good thing that is the last one that they're going to make of those. But we'll dive into those numbers in full after the top 10. Supergirl drops down to number 4 with another $1.1 million, dropping 54%, which is pretty hefty in its second week of release for a current total of $4.4 million. We'll check in on Supergirl in the DC universe after the top 10. And rounding out the top 5 is Obsession with another $1 million, its 8th week in release, dropping 24% for a current total of $21.9 million. Moving on to 6 through 10. At number 6 we have Disclosure Day with another $500,000, its 4th week in release, dropping 38% for a current total of $8.6 million. Backrooms rounds out at number 7 with another $370,000, its 6th week in release, dropping 12% for a current total of $14.2 million. Dear You, bringing in another $350,000, its second week in release, dropping 52% for a current total of $1.4 million. That's pretty rare for a Chinese release to stick around 2 weeks in the top 10. Michael sits at number 9 with another $200,000, its 11th week in release, dropping just 3% for a current total of $45.7 million. Still the highest grossing movie of 2026 in Australia. And rounding out the top 10 is Scary Movie 6 with another $200,000, its 5th week in release, dropping 42% for a current total of $8.6 million. That has passed the total of Scream 7. So first of all, let's take a look at Jackass with the new Jackass opening, and this chart should quite clearly demonstrate the rise and fall of Jackass in terms of pop culture, popularity, and theatrical attendance. At $1.3 million, Jackass Best and Last is the lowest opening movie in the franchise, opening even lower than Jackass the movie back in 2003 with $1.6 million. Jackass 2 in 2006 opened to $2.3 million. Jackass 3D, in the rise of that era, opened to $3.6 million in 2010. Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa in 2013 opened to $3.3 million. And Jackass 4 Ever opened in 2022 for $2.4 million. So you can see there, it's a big rise and a big fall in a very, very aesthetically pleasing chart. Moving on to our super movies and an update for Supergirl to see how she's tracking compared to other super movies. Supergirl 2026 has passed the total gross of Supergirl 1984 and Superman 4, A Quest for Peace. But if you know those movies, you know why they are well and truly at the bottom of this chart. It does have a long way to go before it catches Superman 2. Now, these are inflation-adjusted numbers, and I did that because Superman has been around for so long, going back to 1978, that it's more appropriate for an inflation-adjusted chart for this one. An inflation-adjusted chart to catch 1980s Superman 2 needs to bring in $13 million. I'm not sure if she's going to get there. I'm not sure if 2026's Supergirl is going to move any further up this chart, just because it's falling off quite rapidly, and we'll see how it goes. In context of DC movies, all DC movies that have had theatrical releases in Australia, Supergirl is down there near the bottom still, but it's only its second week in release. It's going to move up this chart a little bit. It's down there just ahead of Superman 3 and the original Superman, and just behind Blue Beetle and Shazam! Fury of the Gods. It's going to pass those two. It's probably going to pass The Suicide Squad and maybe Green Lantern. But yeah, it's not going to go too much higher than that, would be my expectation. Which is not, even if it gets up to the Watchmen and the Batman Returns level, it's not ideally where you want to be. If we inflation adjust, Supergirl falls down even further, but it does have more room to go down here as well. Not to write it off totally, but it's not a financial success in the Australian market compared to the other DC movies. At the top end of this chart, the inflation adjusted chart, we have The Dark Knight Rises, and Batman Forever at numbers 1, 2, and 3. But down there near the bottom, Supergirl 1984 and Superman 4 The Quest for Peace 1987. Not a good time for Superman. Moving over to Pixar and Toy Story 5. Toy Story 5 tracking at $27 million is doing quite well. It's just behind Up from 2009 and just ahead of Monsters Inc. from 2001. Doing quite well, and it's only its third week in release, and it's still got another week of school holidays to go. It's going to do significantly well. If we adjust for inflation, it's still doing well, and it's still got room to grow. It is just ahead of Brave from 2012 and just behind Wall-E from 2008. At the top of this chart, the inflation-adjusted Pixar chart, we have The Incredibles from 2004, Finding Nemo from 2003, and Finding Dory from 2016. Moving on to the 2026 top 10 at the Australian box office, so the top 10 of everything released in calendar year 2026. Michael holds number 1 still at $45.7 million, and The Devil Wears Prada 2 is sitting comfortably at number 2 with $42.4 million. Super Mario Galaxy Movie and Project Hail Mary at 3 and 4 with both $39.3 and $39.1 million respectively. Toy Story 5 moves up to position number 5 with its $27.9 million. Still a little bit of work to catch Project Hail Mary, but I think it will get there. Obsession stays at number 6 at $21.9 million, but Wuthering Heights does move down from number 5 to number 7 with its $20.3 million. Star Wars The Mandalorian at Grogu with its $14.5 million stays at number 8. Backroom stays at number 9. For now, it will probably catch Star Wars by next week with $14.2 million. And rounding out the top 10 is Song Sung Blue that released on January 1st in 2026 with a current total of $12.2 million. Taking a look at what is upcoming this week on the 9th of July, theatrically, wide release, we've got 3 main ones. Moana, the latest Disney live action remake, this time of the 2016 movie Moana. This one's directed by Thomas Kail and starring Catherine Lagaya and Dwayne Johnson. We have The Invite, one of my most anticipated movies of 2026. It's a comedy drama directed by Olivia Wilde, starring Seth Rogen, Olivia Wilde, Penelope Cruz, and Edward Norton. I've already bought my tickets for Friday after work. And the last wide release is Evil Dead Burn, the latest in the Evil Dead saga. This one written and directed by Sebastian Vanelik, starring Suhir Yakub, Tandi Wright, and Hunter Doohan. In limited release, so check your smaller and indie cinemas, we have Dhamal 4, a Hindi language comedy continuing the franchise that started back in 2007. Saan Panch, a Punjabi language action drama out of India. And I, Nobody, a Malayalam language crime thriller also out of India. Moving on to streaming, not too much coming out this week. We have The Westies, a new crime drama series set in 1980s Hell's Kitchen, starring J.K. Simmons, Titus Walliver, and Tom Brittney. It releases on MGM Plus, if anyone has that, on the 12th of July. We also have Little House on the Prairie, a new version of this classic tale starring Alice Hazley, Luke Bracey, and Kruby Fitzgerald, and it releases on Netflix on the 9th of July. We also have Ghost in the Shell, a new iteration of the classic anime is coming to Amazon Prime for Australia, I believe, on 8th of July. This one is based on the manga, so it's unrelated to the movies or standalone complex. If you're familiar with those, but you're not up to date, you do not need to watch them to watch this one. In returning series, we have Trying, the 2020 comedy series, returns for its 5th season, and check that out on Apple TV Plus on July 8th. So, 5 movies for this week's theme of 99 minutes, so let's get into them. First up was a pair of 2026 catch-up movies, The Punisher: One Last Kill, directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green and starring John Bernthal, Deborah Ann Woll, and Judith Light, and it had a runtime of 51 minutes. A short one-shot Punisher story about what he does after all his targets are done. Solid little action episode movie, puts some closure on the character, but also leaves things open should Marvel want to do more with him in future. Looked great, had some great solid action beats as well. Alongside that, for some tonal contrast, we had The Muppet Show, directed by Alex Timbers, starring Sabrina Carpenter, Seth Rogen, and Maya Rudolph, with a runtime of 32 minutes. A one-shot special episode for a potential return series renewal, bringing back all of the classic characters. This one was super fun, very funny, I had a blast from the past. Even though the original Muppet Show was before my time, I still sort of grew up with it because of the movies and reruns. A very fun little special. Next up was 2010's Jonah Hex, directed by Jimmy Hayward and starring Josh Brolin, John Malkovich, Megan Fox, and Michael Fassbender, among many other faces, and it had a runtime of 81 minutes. A comic adaptation of the Western DC Undead comic, and one of only 2 DC movies that never got a theatrical release in Australia. The movie was fine to bad. It looked like the people involved at least read some of the source material, as there were certain elements, plot beats, items that were from the comics. And the cast it had was really, really stacked. But overall, it just wasn't super great as a movie. The next movie would make Jonah Hex, though, look incredible, with 2026's Quantum Supremacy, directed by Jesse Baguette and starring Cuba Gooding Jr., well, his face anyway, and with a runtime of 77 minutes, where it's about 77 minutes too long. I think this movie was about returning AI robots, returning to colonize space to destroy humanity after being sent on a mission many years ago to find a planet safe for humans. I think. The movie was all over the place. So this one was terrible. Like, by far the worst movie I've seen from 2026 so far, and even over the last couple of years. And yes, I watched 2025 War of the Worlds. That was at least funny. And at least 2025 War of the Worlds had Ice Cube. He had an entire room to act in. And there were a couple of sets where people actually did things. This one, the only non-computer generated shots were of Cuba Gooding Jr.'s face and maybe a couple of the other faces looking slightly around left and right, up and down, with exaggerated eye movements, because they were supposed to be in armored suits. Easy frontrunner for the worst movie of 2026. Finally was a palate cleanser movie with a rewatch of 2010's Unstoppable, directed by the late, great Tony Scott and starring Denzel Washington, Chris Pine, and Rosario Dawson, with a runtime of 98 minutes. Based on the true story of a runaway train that gets loose and under power, with all the events that try to stop it. For me, this is a classic movie. No one makes action movies quite like Tony Scott, and this one is great. Not something that's ever going to win a bunch of awards, but it's a damn fine action chase movie about an unstoppable train. Great movie and perfect thing to watch to remind me that movies can be fun after watching Quantum Supremacy. This week's Cinechums movie challenge is simple. New York, New York. Set in New York, shot in New York, whatever connection to New York. People have kicked it off with Caught Stealing, Screamboat, and The King of Comedy. There's quite a few suggestions there. Let's dive over to my shortlist. My shortlist consists of things like A Rear Window, Dog Day Afternoon, Spider-Man, Serpico, Ghostbusters, maybe The Devil Wears Prada 2, all that jazz, Hudsucker Proxy, Super Mario, The Hunger. We've got lots to choose from. We will see how we go. That is it for me this week. Tune in next week where we'll be looking at, well, let's be honest, Moana is going to tear up the charts. We'll compare that to all the Disney live action other movies that have come out from Disney. I'll be catching The Invite on Friday. I'll be surprised if it makes it onto the charts though. And we'll be checking in with the Evil Dead franchise maybe, if the new Evil Dead does make it into the top 10, comparing it to the Evil Dead franchise as far back as it goes. As far back as we can get records. But that's it for me. Have a good one. Watch more movies. Bye.